Hello, 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 hello. Here we are. It's 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Kids are in bed. Time to party. Might as well we can call this ice and fire after hours. Here we are. Here we are. Welcome, welcome. Um so I want to talk about Greendreams. Greendreams. So Carmine and I recently did a a review of a Storm of Swords, and in it of the previous drafts of a Storm of Swords, which you can kind of check out. But in it, I kind of say something that's not exactly true about the nature of Greendreams. So in this draft, there is this idea like the previous drafts of a Storm of Swords. Um, the Howland Reed leaves the Isle of Faces, and it says in the original text that he said goodbye to the trees. Um, and G Stuff, the guy who's doing the uh, research on the previous drafts, said, him saying goodbye to the trees is this, it's more of a connection to him and the green aspect of trees, thus the green men and things like this. Though he also brings up the fact that werewoods aren't green. There's no aspect of greens that are werewoods. So there's this question then of like, well, what does the green of Greendreams mean when werewoods aren't green? Like, why is it Greendreams? And so it turns out that and many of you may know this from my previous videos, but the originally when George R. R. Martin wrote the word Greendreams, he wrote it in a story called Guardians, and I have the text here. Let's bring this up here, and Guardians. Let me pull up the year on when Guardians was written because it's kind of important on why on how long George has been having this idea. So Guardians was written, analog science fiction, in fact, October 1981 is its published date. So he wrote this, 1981. He comes up with the idea of Greendreams. Now, for those that don't know, Tough Voyaging is a series of short stories that George R. Martin wrote, starring a man named Haviland Tough, who they take place in the Thousand Worlds universe. Haviland Tough stumbles upon a Earth vessel from a previous age, back when Earth had higher technology than it does in his time. Now, keep in mind, he lives in spacefaring galaxy. However, there was a time where Earth had even better technology, and it regressed, went through a period where space interstellar flight was lost, called the interregnum, and then it was restored. And so the Thousand Worlds universe is about kind of this jumble of worlds, the jambles, and different adventures of societies rediscovering themselves. That's essentially the setting of A Thousand Worlds. And so Haviland Tough stumbles upon this spaceship that has essentially infinite genetic engineering power, and he becomes a genetic engineer for hire. And so different planets with different troubles hire him to deal with their issues. So in the story of Guardians, there is this planet of Namor, and people are trying to settle it, but the creatures of Namor keep rising up against the people. And so Haviland Tough looks into everything because they're like, oh, can you create like better and better monsters to deal with the monsters that they're sending? And it turns out in the end, Haviland Tough discovers that the entire planet is one telepathic hive mind being. And so he describes this telepathic hive mind being. He says, "For millennia beyond counting, they have dwelled in tranquility and peace beneath the seas of this world. They are slow, thoughtful, philosophical race, and they have lived side by side in the billions, each linked with with the other, each an individual, and each a part of the great racial whole. In a sense, they are deathless. For all the shared experiences of each, and the death of one was as nothing. Experiences were few in the unchanging seas. However, for the most part, their long lives are given over to abstract thought, to philosophy, to strange Greendreams that neither you nor I can truly comprehend. They are silent musicians, one might say. Together they have woven great symphonies of dreams, and those songs go on and on." Now, for those that are pretty familiar with Ice and Fire, you can see a lot of similarities here with the werewood net. We're talking about an undying hive-minded system where death was nothing. I mean, it's a stand-in for heaven, which George writes about this in other stories, namely A Song for Leah. Their thoughts are called, and consciousness are called songs, which is something he continuously talks about. The memories of things being songs. The Armageddon rag is all about this, like people living on as ghosts because the idea of them continue on. They even talk about this in Ice and Fire with Brad. They say Nan will live on as long as you remember her. Things like this, that existing as songs. People becoming songs, like if you die in battle and you become a song, that kind of idea. So the idea of the consciousness being songs, consciousness going on and on and on in this hive net. And he uses this term Greendreams. And I'd said like, I incorrectly said that Greendreams comes from really nothing. It's just a weird idea that he had, but that's not really true. One of the comments pointed out that the planet of Namor is a green ocean. And so, because I was trying to say, like, does green mean trees? Because werewoods aren't green, but does it mean that? And it's like, well, in this situation, like, what does these strange Greendreams mean? Like, why is he using this adjective green to describe dreams? Like, why are Greendreams telepathic dreams? And essentially in this story, it's just that the ocean is green. I imagine it's filled with algae or some sort of plankton, something that gives off a green like aura. And so in this sense, green kind of means nature, but nature being this telepathic, hive-minded being. Men of Greywater Stations, for example, also has an entire planet controlled by one organism that's a mossy fungus that gets on all plants and animals and lives in one large hive mind. This is, it's pretty common thing for George R. R. Martin to write about. And so this world Namor filled with green. So green, in a sense, maybe it is associated with chlorophyll and nature. And you can find this now if we go over to Ice and Fire. Let me see here. Not this. Didn't I have search? Can I search I'm pretty sure in A Clash of Kings in the Bran chapters, Jojen says something about being closer to nature. And right, doesn't he? Is it in game? It can't be in game. We soon. I could swear it's something. It's something like we live closer to the bogs or something like that. Um. Oh, it's in. It's actually in dance. I'm sorry. I thought it would be in Clash. It's in dance. Here it is. Um. The secrets of the gods, said Jojen Reed. Food and fire and rest helped restore him after their ordeals on their journey, but he seemed sadder now, sullen, weary. Truths the first men knew, forgotten now in Winterfell, but not in the wet wild. We live closer to the green in our bogs and crannigs, and we remember. Earth and water, soil and stone, oaks and elms and willows. They were here before us, all, and will still remain when we are gone. So will you. Now, it's almost shocking how much of Guardians is in here, right? We're talking about Greendreams and the green, and we're talking about eternal life and hive-mindedness and all of this, like going on and on. And it's amazing that, considering that this came out in 2011, that we're talking about something 30 years later, that George is taking like pretty much the exact same concept here. But it is kind of funny because, he's saying we live closer to the green. And yes, we think of like bogs, crannigs, like being green, but then he's talking about earth. Now, earth is dirt, and water, soil, stone. That's not really green. Oaks, maybe the oak leaves, and the elms and the willows, maybe the leaves of those. But I guess maybe, moss, you kind of get to that. So, I mean, why are Greendreams green? Well, it does just seem to be, like nature is green. And I guess when we're thinking about, like, some people talk about like Mother Earth and like, oh, the earth fighting back, and the earth, like the earth being sick, as if it is some large hive-minded organism that, as one, it's many yet one at the same time. And so I guess he's getting at that kind of like concept of nature. But it is kind of funny that the central figure of the hive-mindedness has no aspect of green to it at all, white and red. Now, some people have said weird things to me like, oh, there's like corrupted, the werewoods are a corruption or something, or maybe the werewoods are different on the Isle of Faces. And somebody pointed me to this Ice and Fire calendar, which, by the way, I don't think the calendars have any sense of canon in them at all. Okay, I don't think that there's anything to search for in them in that respect. George, and then people are like, oh, but George approves this sort of stuff, and it's like, well, George approves a lot of stuff that's wrong. Like, like he approved, like if you like the map of Bravos in the Lands of Ice and Fire is just wrong. Like no, like it shouldn't be there like that. Anyway, this is the Ice and Fire calendar that people are talking about, and we have a werewood, and there doesn't seem to be red leaves on it. Now, if it's Rhaegar finding Lyanna or whatever, or maybe this is Duncan the Small and Jenny of Stone, Jenny of Old Stones. Maybe it's Jenny of Old Stones and Duncan the Small. It doesn't matter. Neither of those stories take place on the Isle of Faces. So I don't know what, like, people have told me like, oh, this is the Isle of Faces. I was like, I don't see how you're getting that. Like any story of a Targaryen meeting a black haired girl is not necessarily that. I mean, I could even say this is Aemond and you know Atlas Rivers or something, but it doesn't have to happen on Isle of Faces. So, um, but yeah, like why are the leaves green in this? Because the artist fucked up. Like that's it. The artist fucked up. Like I don't think there's any sort of clue that somehow that the Isle of Faces trees are different. I think that essentially because like the answer in the end on like why are Greendreams green? Well, the simple answer is because when George R. R. Martin wrote Tough Voyaging, he chose the telepathic being of that world to be nature focused, and its algae is the color of green, and therefore the Greendreams become the stand-in for like telepathy. And then when he transferred it to Ice and Fire, green still associated maybe with nature in general. But anything beyond that, and that's where Green Seer and Green Men and all of these things come from. It's just nature. That's it. Like that's the only meaning to it is nature dreams, or that's the long and the short of it. And I don't think there's anything beyond that. I don't think there's corrupt red leaves and good green ones or anything like that. I don't even think the eye color thing makes a difference. I know he brings up that there are red eyes and green eyes, which both allow people to be green seers. I don't think it's anything like, okay, green eyes and red eyes. Okay, that just means you don't have they're trying to say you have some sort of like recessive gene or something. Anyway, let's get into things, but I know there's not too much to that story in the end. Green just means nature, and it comes from guardians. Hive-minded thought. Hive-minded nature thought. Hello. What's going on?
Real quick before you get into lay super chats. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. You know what I've been doing this past week? I've been binging Battlestar
Oh,
Gorita Crunch.
he wants to
And
talk about Battlestar.
no, I
Oh,
had one question and I'm going to bounce cuz I have some food on the stove.
okay.
Okay, so here okay. I'm in the first season. I'm towards the very end of the first season.
Uh-huh.
I'm really enjoying the shit out of it. And for the
Yeah.
audience to understand this, Preston has been hyping up Battlestar since I've known him, since we've been
Well,
collabing for the last 7 years.
I've been hyping it and trashing it simultaneously.
I know. I was
Like
gonna
I
say
keep
that. Like
telling him, I'm like, oh my god,
it ends badly.
you're
Yeah.
gonna have such a great high, and it's just
Okay.
gonna come crashing down, crash and burn. It's
So
gonna be fucking incredible.
okay. So far I've been liking it. All right, but I have one question to ask you
Mm,
about the ending, about why it sucked. All I want you to tell me is yes or no to what I'm about to ask you. Okay, because I
okay.
just finished the episode where they found the Cylon infiltrator and Starbuck is interrogating him and torturing him, and then he lied about the whole thing, and then they just throw him out the airlock. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. There's one thing about this show that can piss me off to the point of just I'm done with the show right here, right now. And it depends on what you're gonna say.
Okay.
Every episode starts off, the first 35 seconds is humanity made robots. They rebelled. There was a war. The war ended. Now it's starting up again. And now the Cylons have made human look-alike models. They
Hmm.
look and feel human. They have a plan. I think I know what the plan is. Okay, I'm going to ask you,
Okay.
and I want you to tell me yes or no. Because the entire first season, it seems like all the Cylons are doing are torturing us and manipulating us, just fucking with us, sowing disinformation,
Mm,
psychologically, mentally, like physically, they're fucking with us. Okay, and then that episode about the torture guy. Okay, fine. At the very end, it's just a yes or no. Don't go into detail. At
Okay.
the very end, are the Cylons going to come out of nowhere and say, "We were just trying to determine what you would do in moments of strain and dire consequence, and we were testing you the entire time to see what you would do"?
No,
Okay, thank
no,
God. Oh my
no.
God, I was gonna be like, that's such bullshit. Because
However, I will tell you
no,
that the plan is going to really disappoint you.
ugh. Don't go into detail. Don't go into spoiler story detail. I don't want to know. It's just that the every episode starts with they have a plan. What the fuck is the plan? Stop it, Brian. They have. I'm. Who knows? I might like it. You hated it. I might like it. Who knows?
You're not gonna like it, man. I mean, so like some people are like the best people can say is the ending is not that bad. I think the ending is abysmal, and like all of the joy I had from the miniseries in the first two seasons, which are so good.
Oh yeah, I'm
Uh,
liking it.
oh my god, it's so good. And then
You
they're
know,
able to just beat it, just be like, we'll choose the worst way could possibly just end this whole thing because they didn't know what they were doing. They
honestly,
didn't
honestly,
have a
I'll be
plan like writing it. And so
no,
they
no. They
got to the
okay,
end and they're
yeah.
like,
There's a similar show happening right now called From. It's the show that when Phil the Issues guy came on like almost a year ago, he recommended it to me. The basic premise of the show is you're driving along the road, you encounter this town, and as you're trying to leave the town, it just loops back around. You can't leave the town. And at nightfall, monsters come out and try to kill you unless you're indoors. Super cool, creepy horror vibe. Season 1 was pretty decent. Season 2, waste of fucking time. They're trying to like stall the mystery, which is the basic aspect of the show. It's really what drives you in, and it feels like the writers have no like major plan for what the mystery of the show is, and they're just stalling so they can have a job. So what you're
yeah.
telling me is that's kind of what happened with Battlestar, is that there's a plan, we'll get to the plan, and they didn't think out the plan well enough, and then it went
This is the thing. The fact that Scott doesn't remember what the plan was is very like you're
Scott,
not
stop.
alone, Scott. Like it was a big buildup, and you're like, what were the Cylons? What were the Cylons doing? I mean, I remember what the plan was in the end, and it's really dumb because it's all the same thing with the ending. It's really, 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 really dumb. It's oh my god.
I'm just glad you gave me this whole like.
It's
I'm
just
just
so
because that was my
funny. It's
theory.
just like it's like you're in the middle. You know when your friend starts dating somebody that you just know is like bad news, but they're like in the bliss moment. You're
Mm,
just like, oh my god,
mm,
this is gonna end badly. This is gonna end
mm.
badly.
I know that all too well. No, so I'm in the middle of it. I'm still on season 1. I'm almost done with it. I'm at the part where the Cylon goes, Adama's a Cylon. I'm like, I fucking knew it. But at the same time, that could be disinformation. So, and that's the greatest part about this fucking show is the mystery. Urgh, the mystery. That's let's keep going. Who's a Cylon? Who's not? Urgh. Everyone keeps fucking themselves over. Everyone is fucking humanity over. The engineer crew, like the chief, Baltar, like what the fuck? What the fuck? Hey, look, dude, I like the high blonde as much as the next guy, but the fuck over humanity for pussy? Come on, what are we
Yeah, I
doing?
mean, has he already given her the nuke? Oh,
No, I don't think
maybe I
so.
spoiled that.
Preston,
Like,
God damn it, Preston. We deserve to talk about it.
there's definitely some choices where you're just like, yeah, no one would do that. There's only 50,000 people left. No one would do that. Like, like there's some later plots where everyone's like, we need to keep democracy alive, and you're like, dude, there's 50,000 of you left. I'm sure you can tolerate dictatorship for like a couple generations. Like just relax, stop killing each other. And it's amazing. It's amazing where you're just like, oh my god, they're so dumb. They're so dumb.
I'm at the part where Starbuck is going to give Baltar her blood sample so he can test like who's a Cylon, and the entire time this guy's just like he's humping the desk because he's having the fucking the dream or the fantasy, which okay. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he's great. I love him. And the whole thing, the Cylons being assholes to Hilo on Caprica. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Like, look, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I have faith that hopefully I won't hate it as much as you did. What's worse, ending of Battlestar or Game of Thrones? Don't say tie. Wow, no. What?
It's a
Jesus.
real toss up. It's a real toss up.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
There's something worse than it's not your decision to make. It's not your choice.
Yeah, there is.
Wow. No.
There is. Yeah.
Wow.
There is.
Son of a bitch. It's so good. Katie Sackhoff is so hot. Fuck.
I know that like the fact that like you had like the biggest crush on her and you'd never seen Battlestar was like,
No.
how did you, it's like having a crush on Jennifer Aniston and never having seen Friends. You're like, that's the whole fucking, like, how can you have a crush on Jennifer Aniston and not have seen Friends? How can you have a major crush on Katie Sackhoff and not have seen Battlestar?
By the way, the Colonel, Tig, I love his voice, and I was trying to, for the whole time, I'm like, where have I heard his voice before? He was General Tullius in Skyrim and the security officer Bailey in Mass Effect. I'm like, oh, I love his voice. His voice is great. Not James Earl Jones. What's a Dom of actor? It's Edward James Olmos, I think. Edward James Olmos. He's great. Okay, well, that's... By the way, before I bounce, have you seen Shogun yet?
No, not yet. No.
Dude. Gotta get on Shogun. All right. I might come back on later, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to go eat. I will...
If you watch another episode of Battlestar, oh my God.
Actually, yeah, I'm going to go watch another episode of Battlestar, yeah.
It's gonna be so, I'm gonna love this moment. I almost want, like, you should remember this video and like we're gonna like clip this and then later after you finish the series like come back and have like the comparison and you're gonna be like, oh God, oh my God, Preston, you said it was bad, but I didn't think it could be that bad.
Answer one more question. Do they actually answer questions or do they leave some stuff in the air?
They answer everything in the laziest way possible.
Okay. Well, okay. I'll get there.
Which is why everyone hates the ending.
Do they answer it at the very last episode or some of the episodes leading up to the last?
Very last.
Wait a minute. Please tell me this wasn't all a dream.
No.
Okay, thank Christ. I was about to say.
It's not all a dream. No, it's not all a dream.
Okay. Thank Christ. Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
So far, episode, I think I'm on episode 8. When Tig's wife.
Maybe if it was all a dream, it would be better. I don't know.
Stop! Don't say that. Wow, really?
It's really,
Toss
really
up between
bad.
this and Game of Thrones. God damn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Well.
I'm telling you, this is what I told you, man. No one talks about Battlestar anymore because it was such a bad ending. And, you know, it was the show. I would go to people's houses and they would have like Battlestar art with the cut off corners and stuff, posters with the cut off corners, recruitment posters. It's really cool stuff.
I'm sorry to the super chatters because you're waiting for Preston to get your stuff. It's just I feel as though if Battlestar came out today, maybe some of it could have still been alive with like YouTubers doing videos on it. But I feel bad for those YouTubers who were hyping up the first couple of seasons and then it fucking tanked.
Like I knew a lot of people that like bought, like had posters like this, and you know, you cut off the corners, and because all the corners are cut off in Battlestar World, and like have them and they would have them on their apartment because it was really cool. There was some really cool posters, and everyone was really into the show, and it just, you could cut off the corners here, and then it's just like,
All right, well, I'll hit you back up later, my love.
All right. If the others are a metaphor for climate change, Greendreams could be considered green energy. They help the planet by destroying its destroyers. mean, that's the thing, right? Like we're talking about if the whole thing, like if the whole thing is a metaphor for environmentalism, right? We mankind um, attacks nature, and then nature kind of fights back in its way by making the world unlivable. Um, it's kind of day after tomorrow, right? And then once the humans are dead, like nature can regrow and be reborn again, right? Um, except maybe it's so bad that all life will die or something. But Greendreams could be green energy, help the planet. Trying to think if that would work. I mean, obviously, like George R. R. Martin is for like natural balance and environmentalism and living in nature. I'm sure he thinks like the Nathi is like the example of like the way to live. Um, and he writes so many stories about like humans not being in touch with nature and being out of balance. And so, but I don't know. I don't know if it could just be green. When did we start using the term green energy anyway? Right, like green energy. I guess it could. I mean, I guess people started. It says according to the OED, the first use of green energy as a term was like back in 1980. So it's always a possibility. That we just using the term green to be associated with things that are environmentally good, nature. If Dornish law is institutionalized across the realm, any living descendant of Walder Frey's elder sister wed to the last Butterwell would be the rightful ruler of the twins. Butterbridge faction. Yeah, I've thought about like the implications of Dornish law. So one big thing about Ice and Fire that people kind of, I don't know. The Middle Ages are a weird time because like their legal system is very different from what we think today. Like when everything is based on oaths, and an oath is a binding legal document. Because this is a time where not everyone is literate, and it doesn't matter. You don't have like signing contracts and stuff. And so when people had binding contracts, they made them with oaths. Now in other places there were signing things, but when you look at like Muslim and Jewish weddings, there is a signing of a contract, while Christian weddings there is a vow, right? And they're equivalent. It doesn't really matter like one way or the other. Like the Middle Ages, when people are talking about oaths and everything like that, these are contracts and they're legal entities. There were courts that you could go to and talk about. Oh, well, this oath was made between us, and this is the deal. And that's what feudalism is. It's a contract, an oath. And so when people start saying like, oh, well, what about legally speaking, according to Andal law, like Aegon II should be ruler. Well, no, everybody came and swore an oath to Rhaenyra. So you have there is a legal system. All of these people legally, were for Rhaenyra. And so, but Dornish law is wholly different in that we know that there's a big book of Dornish law. And so you kind of get more of this idea of like the Magna Carta of law being above king. Because in these situations, in this system of oaths, like the king would just be the ultimate oath holder and would decide all situations underneath. But coming up with this idea like the Magna Carta that there are principles and law that even the king is not above is very interesting. And I think that's the point of Dornish law. I mean, yes, there's this uh, men and women being the same kind of thing in inheritance, but it has to be more than that, right? There's a huge book of Dornish law. It can't just be that one thing. And so, yeah, there is this idea of like who's above whom. Is the church the highest? Is the king the highest? Is law itself the highest? And if it does, if something like Dornish law were to take effect, what sort of things are retroactive? If you suddenly declare that men and women are equal in inheritance, how far do you go back? Do you mean like from now on? Or does can someone say, well, that means my mother should have inherited, and so I should get it because my mother should have inherited, is it applicable, in retrospect? And, we don't know. We don't know the answers to these sorts of things. And so in a sense, Dornish law just kind of makes everything super, super messy. But yeah. Missandei is a faceless agent. Thoughts? There's certainly some hints of Missandei being a faceless man that I think George is putting in intentionally. I don't know if George has decided whether or not Missandei is a faceless man, though I think it's safe to say that George definitely put in hints that she might be in order to, titillate the reader and make the reader wonder. The big one being the fact that she looks young, but is clearly very wise for her age and seems to have all these experiences where she talks about Nath and her relationship with her brothers that doesn't fit in timeline. She can't be that young and still have like memories of Nath and stuff like that and know all these languages. But and she can't be so scheming at such a young age. She's just, no one's that smart. So, there's those aspects because the waif looks young, even though she's very old, right? And so there's that. But then there's also like her just appearing in a room, right? And Barristan being like, "What? How did you get here?" Dungeon Master, where'd you go? I don't know if you guys watched like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Dungeon Master, where'd you go? What? So, there's definitely that aspect of it, but it does seem to be kind of added in A Dance with Dragons. What are the chances that Daenerys would actually turn into Slaver's Bay and there would happen to be a faceless man there? Or maybe a faceless man replaced Missandei. I don't know. But at some point, and Missandei got killed. But it's definitely something that George wanted to put as a possibility, even if it's not confirmed. Now, what's the implication of it? I don't know. I mean, are they trying to get a hold of the dragons? Are they trying to kill the dragons? Are they trying to kill Dany? Are they trying to just keep a careful watch on things? We're not sure. So, do you use the dragons to kill people because you're a death cult? Do you kill the dragons? If you're a death cult, things like that. But it's definitely something George, I think, is thinking about. It's just, I don't know if he's really put it in there as a confirmed. Nothing's ever confirmed, right? We know Varys' grand plan. Grant's plan. What is Littlefinger's plan? Well, Varys' grand plan seems to be to put Aegon on the throne. Littlefinger's grand plan, you're right. We've never really determined what it is. What we kind of know is that Littlefinger is obsessed with Sansa, as he was obsessed with Catelyn. And we know that, like, the one time we really see him lose his cool. I mean, he loses his cool a little bit with Tyrion at various moments when, like, Tyrion is trying to offer Myrcella as a to wed, and Tyrion offers it to as a marriage to Sweet Robin and Littlefinger, and then it pulls it back, and Littlefinger's upset. But the time we really see Littlefinger lose his cool is in a Game of Thrones. I want to say, is that Sansa? Let's see if I can find it. Does he storm off? Trying to see if they actually used the. No, I guess I'm not gonna be able to find it fast enough. But I remember the scene. He's at the hands tourney, and he looks at her hair, and he flips out and he storms off. So for a long time, because a lot of what Littlefinger does seems to be kind of chaotic, you kind of go, oh, maybe he's trying to fulfill prophecy. It is very interesting that his name is Baelish, and he's trying to steal a woman and perhaps marry her, perhaps romance her, kidnap her, and that this is the story that we've heard a lot. It's Bael the Bard. Bael the Bard, tries to steal off with Lady Winterfell. I mean, Sansa is that. So it's strange that Littlefinger, Peter Baelish, is doing the same actions as Bael the Bard. And it's also, it's kind of Rhaegar's thing too, right? Stealing off with a woman. So it may be that Littlefinger is interested in prophecy, or it may be that would be one guess, and I think the other guess is simply that he's obsessed with Cat, and therefore Sansa is an embodiment of Cat, and he just wants her to be super powerful, and him to marry her, and that's it. That was the show, at least, right? He wanted her on the Iron Throne and him to be married to her. Though, it almost seems so simple. I think it's more fun to think that Baelish is actually, like, big into prophecy and thinks, like, red hair is super special and, like, wants to be like Bael the Bard and fulfill prophecy or something. Him just being in love with Cat and seeing Sansa as Cat just seems, I don't know. It kind of takes away from his obsession with Cat to have Cat so replaceable. So that's why it always kind of bugs me, like, was he really in love with Cat, or is he just then why is Sansa such a good stand-in and Lysa wasn't? Like, Lysa was just as pretty as Cat at one time. Keep in mind that she physically gets more fat, but, like, at one time Lysa was just as pretty as Cat. So Lysa should be just as good as a stand-in. Why is Sansa an effective stand-in for Cat, but Lysa is not? Because is Sansa's personality fucking fantastic? Like, what? We haven't seen that. We haven't seen anything with Sansa where we're like, well, what a fantastic personality. She's just like Cat. No, like, Sansa for the most part has just been kind of this, lump just sitting there having stuff happen to her. So I don't know. I kind of like the prophecy thing because I don't think he's just in love with Cat and Sansa as a stand-in for Cat makes any sense, because Sansa hasn't done anything, unless it's like, it's actually Lolita, like, and I mean, like, Lolita in the sense that the guy had this really great experience when he was when he was like 12 or 13, and therefore he wants to get back to when he was 12 or 13 and in his head. And so the reason he doesn't like Lysa or Kat anymore is because he's not 12. They're not 12 or 13 anymore. In the middle, he would lose interest in Sansa too the minute she got old or something, you know? What do you think about Taisha being a septa or a silent sister? I think that's a pretty good idea. I think that might be where we go in the fanfic with it. I really, so bringing up the fanfic, there is a medieval story. I want to say, what's it called? So I'll have to find it again, but like, it's similar to Canterbury Tales, where it's a bunch of tales being told, but it's a bunch of tales by, I want to say, nuns and priests. And I'm trying to remember. I'm sure someone's going to like put it in the comments here. But anyway, I thought it would be a really fun chapter for Hota and Darkstar to be in Old Town, hiding from the Ironborn who are raiding the city, and be in a septry, because they're looking for Septa Eglantine and Myrcella. So they would go to Old Town and check out the septries and the mother's house, and see if maybe they could run into Myrcella, and then the Ironborn would be attacking and they would be holed up in there. And so it would be a time for different people to tell different stories, and you'd have this chapter of storytelling, much like Bran telling stories with Mira and Jojen Reed. And then they could, that would be a great way to just introduce different stories that we always wanted to talk about that we never got to, like maybe Starfall or the Harrenhal tourney, or anything that these people wanted to tell a story of. And it would be a good fun chance. And it could be that if they're stuck in this mother's house, that one of the women telling a story could be Taisha. I always thought that would be a fun way to bring her in. But I think that's a fine situation, generally speaking, yes, if a woman is going to lose her value by having a not being a virgin anymore, like what do fathers do with the girls at this point? It would make sense to send her off to be a septa. Yeah. Will Sam's maternal family, Florence, be relevant to his plot? His aunt is married to Lord Hightower, and his grandmother could be a skin changer. There's a so there's a fun little weird thing. I've talked about this before in A Storm of Swords, where Sam hears the story about somebody being burned, about Alistair Florent getting burned, and it creating the wind that blows the ships so quickly and unrealistically to the wall. And the weird thing about the story is he hears the story, and no one mentions the name, but Alistair Florent is Sam's grandpa, and so he hears this story about his own grandfather being burned alive to blow their sails, and is like, oh, and he's just like, oh, what a crazy story. But it's his grandpa. Like it's one of these weird moments that like you'd never notice it unless you're like a super fan, like going through family trees and being like, wait a minute, because it's just never brought up. Like, but it's like one of these weird moments in the story where you're like, wow, you know. Um, and Sam never finds out, like never figures it out. He's just, it's a little weird in that respect. Um, you know, or Sam should have been like, when Selyse, because Selyse doesn't arrive either, but he should be like, oh, I'm related to Selyse. He should have mentioned that. But I think Sam's maternal family will play a role. A lot was made of Lazy Leo's family connections and how privileged he was in Old Town. And yet at the same time, like Sam has many of those other same connections, but he doesn't talk about them in kind of the same way. I mean, I guess it's Pate that brings it up, right? But Sam has those same kind of connections. Considering, yeah, his aunt is married to Leighton Hightower, so one would think that he'd have some sort of connection. So I think at some point he can, if he gains his confidence, he can use his relations to influence people. But I think it will come in. But his grandmother was a Melara Crane. I have to look this up. Why was Melara Crane considered a skin changer? Or on the other, or is it on the other side? On the Tarly side? Who's Tarly's? We don't know anything about Tarly's. Melara Crane is a skin changer? I hadn't heard that before. Huh. I don't know about that. Relation to colloquial green memories. What are green memories? I mean, an Urban Dictionary's got a weird one. It relating to lust, but they seem kind of that's pretty new. There's some sort of book by Bernard Darwin called Green Memories, but I think it's about golfing. Yeah, there's a lot of different references to green memories. It seems to be a pretty common term to just throw that in. But I guess in general though, the color green is associated with nature. So, I mean, if you're going to like the real basics, right? Like, red is going to be fire, blue is going to be cold, or maybe water, or maybe sky. Green is probably going to be nature or sickness, right? Like what else? The real basics of these colors. Excited for Dunk and Egg. Any changes you think they'll make story-wise? I am very excited for Dunk and Egg. I think because the Dunk and Egg's material is so strong, I think that they're just such great stories, um, that I'm very, very excited. And I think it's going to be really, really great. They chose two characters that, or the two actors that, at least Dunk, he's a little too good looking in my opinion, but I'm sure he'll be fine. They always do that, right? I mean, Gwendolyn Christie is way too good looking to be Brienne, but she was an incredible Brienne. What are you gonna do? It's fine. Yeah, he's also way too short. He's way too short to be Dunk. But nonetheless, maybe they're gonna surround him with short people to make him look taller, because he's only 6'3" or something, which the whole point, it's a fairly, Carmine and I talked about this. There's a video up on his channel about it right now, but like, it's a fairly large plot point that, Tansel too tall, that he crushes on her because she's so tall and he's very insecure. And so he has this like flirty moment with her, and, and then he wants to defend her and gets in all of the trouble in the Hedge Knight. And it's related to him being like tall and awkward, and him like trying to connect with like another woman that he thinks is tall and awkward, and it being like a moment. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll work anyway with beautiful people. I'm sure it'll work with beautiful people fine. But I'm very, very excited about it. I think it's going to be great. I mean, I'm much more excited about it than I was House of the Dragon. And so I think it'll be great. A lot of characters have strange visions. Which ones in the series do you think are having Greendreams versus being messed with by a glass candle? It's a good question. I would say, so there's no hard and fast rules, but I have thought about this a bit. And so generally speaking, people tend to have visions when either they are in the moon's light or in starlight at night, or sometimes they're sitting on it, like on a tree or next to a tree, right? So, and sometimes it's both. So like Jamie has it happen, now, and then there's Dany's dreams, which just fucking happen, right? So which seem to be Quaithe. So I'm just assuming that Quaithe with her glass candle is doing all of Dany's visions. That's my guess on that one. I think Aemon and his dreams are definitely a glass candle from Marwyn. I think Doran, when he sits and waits for the moon to rise and stars to come and things like that, I think that's glass candle. I think Lancel and his visions, I think, are a glass candle. From Derry. And then I think Cersei and Ned's and King's Landing are glass candles as well. But then it's like, well, what's left? Who's getting stuff from the Werewoods? Well, I mean, the Stark children, seem to be associated with, and their wolves seem to be like from the Werewoods, or at least, and I'm trying to think of like who else. I think Aeron is a glass candle because I think it's from Euron. And then, but there is that mystery one of Jamie, because Jamie, I think he lies on a stump in the moonlight or something, and he gets this vision, and so it's a big mystery on who's doing it for Jamie. I'm trying to think who else gets some visions that we kind of know about. All this, yeah. So I mean, oh, and then like who's doing the stuff in the flames? like for Melisandre, that's one of the bigger mysteries. Or like, why does Balon also stares into the fires? Like, what is he seeing? Like, who's seeing things when they stare into the fires? Is that also um, uh, the Greendreams? Like, is it just time traveling Bran? Like, at what point can, because time traveling Bran can move beyond the the werewoods and everything at some point, right? We're told that, so he can kind of just do it all. But I very much think that Aaron, Aemon, Danny, and are glass candles. Doran, Hoster Tully, I think those are glass candles, but who knows about? Yeah, who knows about the others? Oh, it gets confusing. All right, I'm so behind here. What would it take you to convince you magic exists, or would you just prefer sci-fi explanations? Love the chapter reads, by the way. It hits me in the nostalgia. I'm trying to think like what would convince me that magic exists. Like other than just telepathy and telekinesis and all that. I suppose it would have to be something that doesn't really like fit in the realm of kind of like what we've been seeing so far, like or George's previous stories. I'm trying to think about like some sort of Harry Potter spell that just like cannot be explained with telepathy or telekinesis or something. And I understand that like animating the dead seems like ridiculous, but you know he did that in Night Flyers with telekinesis, so I guess that somehow works. Um, like I say, the closest we get is like Shadow Baby, but even Shadow Babies can kind of be explained because like the first one isn't really a shadow; it's just like it almost seems like warging open air. It's definitely the scene from Forbidden Planet redone because Stannis has the dream and remembers it, just like in Forbidden Planet, where an invisible beast is killing things. So it's like some sort of telekinesis. I'm trying to think of like what would be really like straight magical, like and then like what's the source? Because even when we think about magic in video games, right? People start thinking about like mana and like energy and stuff like that, like as opposed to just some sort of inexplicable spell. Um, Let me give me an example. Let's see. Oh, okay. All right. What would convince me of actual magic? Um, a summoning of something would probably convince me. Like, if somebody just summoned something like a demon or created a horse out of thin air, like just like creating something from nothing. That would probably convince me if we see something like that. Because we don't have any sort of like summoning. Um, I think a healing spell would probably convince me, where you just like cast a spell and a wound is healed. Um, some sort of invisibility spell, an invisibility cloak. Um, Something like that. Like real standard fantasy stuff. Um, a like a like a lot of this like standard fantasy stuff like objects that aren't animals or people having souls in them. Um, like something that's not biological having a soul, like say like an enchanted mirror, you know, talking to somebody, summoning a demon, summoning like a horse out of nothing, like accelerated healing, um, things like that, like stuff that we regularly see in like a fantasy setting or Dungeons and Dragons, not just like this, the standard telepathy telekinesis kind of stuff that we're seeing from George R. Martin. But Greendreams are anti-Rhaenyra propaganda, perhaps. Why the greens and the blacks? I don't know if George even thought about it. That green and black. Did he even think about those colors? It was just kind of random. Thank you, Steve. Ever seen Eureka, Farscape, Firefly, or Babylon 5? I have seen all of Firefly. I love Firefly. I mean, even though you're not supposed to like Joss Whedon anymore, I still love all of Joss Whedon's stuff. I've never seen Eureka. I've seen some episodes of Farscape and Babylon 5. Babylon 5 never really connected with me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I just wasn't in the, like, didn't understand the politics of it all. I tried to jump in the middle. Farscape, I get the humor. I understand why some people might like the appeal of it, but I guess I never got into Farscape because I don't know, it felt too Sci-Fi Channel-ish. Maybe that's a really bad thing to say, but huh. Fantasy author George R. Martin expressed dissatisfaction with how the writers handled the ending of TV series. I've never heard him say anything yet about it. Why Gildain included Fool Frey story in history? Gildain even admits that Fool Frey fought bravely, dies for Rhaenyra, like history of World War II says. Max Taylor, CG's 101st, called Messy Max because he dropped the pass in Army Navy game. So there's a whole bunch of like things in Fire and Blood where you have a ancestor of somebody else that we know in the main story, and either they're exactly the same or they're the exact opposite, right? Like, and so, for instance, there's a Sam Tarly in Fire and Blood, and he is, I want to look him up here. Disambiguation. There is a Sam there is a Savage Sam Tarly, Lord of Hornhill. And when the Vulture King began raiding, Sam Tarly like joined, and he suddenly appears in the Dornish lines and march with several thousand knights and archers, and he fights in this incredible war, right? And he says that to claim that Savage Sam's Valyrian steel sword, Heartsbane was crimson from hilt to point with the blood of dozens of Dornish outlaws he had slain. And so, you know, you're just supposed to go, ah ha ha, how funny that like the other Sam Tarly is the exact opposite of the Sam Tarly we know in the story, right? And then we take we take Fool Frey, and isn't it amazing that Forrest Frey is like the most loyal, incredible Frey who like jumps to Rhaenyra's side and then fights truly for her. And like, you know, immediately, like, isn't it so funny that he's the exact opposite of Walder Frey, that he does the exact opposite thing? I mean, that's all it is. And he you know, George R. R. Martin includes like I don't know, 100 of these different situations in the story where either the ancestor is exactly like them or they are the exact opposite. Now, Fool Frey, I mean, the Fool Frey dubbing is kind of funny because do they call him even Fool Frey in Princess and the Queen? Because I want to say no, they just call him that in the Rogue Prince, because the Rogue Prince was written after Princess and the Queen. So he created this Fool Frey story where he created this Frey character who was Forrest Frey, who was like super loyal, and then he just wanted, I guess, throw him a bone, and in the Rogue Prince. But I mean, there's not much to why he was included. The fighting in the Riverlands, like Stonehenge and Burning Mill, like have no significance in the story at all. Like, you know, like the war itself, the Dance of the Dragons, as I've done with my like timeline, doesn't really make any sense. Like, it's just, he needs to fill some pages and he needs to show that there's fighting. So, you know, the Freys fight for a while, and then all of a sudden they fight in Cracklaw Point, and then all of a sudden, you know, they fight down in the Reach in succession. Nobody's fighting simultaneous. Okay. I wonder if Carmine's season 4 Battlestar Galactica experience might be different from ours. He's binging it all at once instead of the weekly anticipation we endured, hoping it would get better and never did. I'm almost forgetting about that. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, also he's been warned that it's going to be bad, so his expectations are low. Like, we were all thinking it was going to be incredible. And like you are right that it was, especially that final 10 episodes, remember? And you're just like, oh my God, there's only 10 episodes left. We're building to the ending. And then it's like, they waste like 9 episodes on the coup. And you're like, just get on with it. Like, oh my God, why do I care? Why do I care that there's a coup within the Battlestar? Oh my God, just get on with it. And then I just remember week after week being like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And then it's like, why are you guys infighting at this point? Ugh. He's probably going to think it's not that bad. Oh, George R. R. Martin publicly complained about the Battlestar quote. Oh, but damn, doesn't anyone know how to write an ending anymore? Did he? Oh my gosh. What did he say about Battlestar Galactica? Oh, okay. George R. R. Martin expressed his dissatisfaction, commenting, "Battlestar Galactica ends with, oh, I don't want to ruin it for Carmine." Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize that George actually hated the ending too, and wrote and wrote up on it. I didn't want to announce it. Like, obviously, if you want to, if you Google George R. R. Martin Battlestar Galactica, you'll get the quote of like what George said, and I completely agree with him. I think we all agree with him. Um, but yeah, it's it's hilarious. It actually is kind of hilarious that it applies to. I don't know if it exactly applies to Game of Thrones, but you know, the fact that the Game of Thrones has a poor ending as well is ironic. Oh gosh. Um just read Unsound Variations. Surprised the time travel was off page and possibly just lies. Do you think Bran will time travel in point of view or just recount it, or will it even remain implied but ambiguous? Um Unsound Variations is kind of unusual about it because uh, it is just Unsound Variations is just a bunch of dudes in a room talking, and so they you know we kind of accept that you know it's real, you know, and that because but he could just be, you're right, that he could just be lying. He could just be lying and then commit suicide at the end, and there was no time travel. But obviously, all of the characters think there is time travel. But I think George wrote it ambiguous in case, you know, you might question it, say there was no time travel. Um, the but I think Bran will. I mean, I think Bran has time traveled already. Um, or is pretty close. I mean, him going back in time and like speaking to Ned and having Ned kind of look around. I think he will hmm. But then again, if I'm gonna change my mind here, actually, if we're on the final iteration, it could be that he recognizes that the previous brands time traveled and that he's not going to time travel anymore, and that this is the final iteration to get out. Um, so I think maybe the other brands are going to talk about their time travel, but I don't think Bran himself. I mean, time travel in the sense that he's going to go to the past and view the past. But if we're talking about time travel where he's changing stuff and changing the timeline, I think the timeline's already been changed, and we're on the last iteration of Bran to get out. Um, right, like, you know, if we're watching, because I do think it's essentially Groundhog's Day, but like if we're in the Groundhog's Day loop, we're just observing that final day to get out. You know, we're not going to have him reset something and then go again. Not the, there's also just no time. There's no time. There's no time for any of this. Eventually when I I might do it at the one third point. I'm very close to the one third point of the fanfic. Um, and I say this because no time for stuff. So here's the fanfic so far, and we're at 111,000 words, not including Theon and Mercy, which is another 10, 11,000 words. Okay. So that would bring it to 120, 122. Um, Once we finish Jamie, you know, you throw that in, that would be like 120, 126. Tyrion 3, when it's done, is another 7,500. Then we're in the 130 something world, and that means that's 1/3 the way, right? Because the A Dance with Dragons was 405. It's either 405 or 415. 415. So if we take 415, we divide by 3, 138. So it's probably Carmine messaging me here. Stop talking about the but I think, like, there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. Like, having gotten to 1/3 of the story and realizing that, like, man, the plot's hardly moved at all. Like, because we haven't even gotten to the Battle of Ice, or like Cersei's trial, or Jaime's trial, or Old Town, the sacking of Old Town, right? You get all that in, and the book is half over, and you realize, like, oh my gosh, like, and this is me, like, actively trying as hard as I can to advance the plot as quickly as possible, and it's like, when George has no desire to do that when he writes. So how is it, how can he fit any time travel reboots or anything like that in there? There's just not time. It's not time for anything. Would you rather be Littlefinger, Varys, Tyrion, or Tyrion, and why? I'm trying to think of who is the worst person here, because I don't want to be any of these guys, because they're all pretty horrible. Littlefinger sold a girl into sex slavery. And then passed her on to Ramsay. That's pretty unforgivable. Tyrion's murdered many people, raped some people, just shot his dad, strangled his lover, broke Marillion's hand with his foot. Varys hires little kids who've had their tongues cut out. And they're all horrible, and it's murderer at the end. So I want to be none of them. They all deserve very poor fates. I don't. Maybe Tyrion has a redemption arc. I don't know if these other guys do. But, like, who would I rather be? I want to say Littlefinger. Like, Varys has a lot of. Let me think. Littlefinger's had the most comfortable life, I guess. See, the thing about Varys, he's got the incredible abilities. He does. But I would never want to go through what Varys has gone through. I would never want to have, like, those active days where I'm being Rugen the jailer and on the small council manipulating people, pretending, like, the anxiety that the guy must have at all times that someone's going to find him out as he's running around town doing all this shit. Like, that guy just must be a wreck. He must be a wreck. Varys just, he'd be the last one. I don't want to be Varys. Now, Littlefinger, he seems to be enjoying himself more. I guess he gets to hang out in a brothel all day or something, and then hang out in the Vale now. He seems to have the most comfortable life. Tyrion's life's pretty. He's been through a lot. Has his nose cut off. Has to be a dwarf. I guess Littlefinger is. If I had to choose, I'd be Littlefinger. But they're all He has got the most comfortable life. All horrible people. Um, does the Gravedigger deserve his own chapter? Does the title Gravedigger foreshadow digging the graves of the Quiet Isle people, or his own grave to retrieve his buried armor? Will the burnt men confront the burned men? Now I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I think the Hound's story is as finished as it needs to be. Like, I don't think the Hound needs to return. I think that, yeah, you could pull him out of retirement to do some stuff. But I don't see that stuff being a better ending than where he is. You know, like, he's at peace on the Quiet Isle after having been through so much shit. I don't know what point I would be like bringing him back. Like, what do I need the Hound to do? You know? Because everything that like he needs to do, he doesn't really need to do. Like, oh well, he needs to kill his brother. Does he? You know, like, that's not going to give him peace. He needs to have a reunion with Sansa. Does he? Like, some little girl he's obsessed with. So he needs to have a reunion with Arya. Does he? So I just don't. You know, considering that the story has so many plot threads that need to be resolved, the Hound's plot thread is as resolved as it needs to be, and it's a pretty good ending. I don't see what he adds. Like, and people, I know, I understand that people ask me like similar things with Quentin. They're like, well, Quentin has an ending. Like, why can't you leave him be? And I was like, well, there's a lot of things related to Doran Martell and Arianne and somebody needing to bring a dragon back and splitting the dragons up and you know, that kind of demand a Quentin existing, you know. Just like George R. Martin, you know, kept Victarion alive for a reason. I just don't know what the Hound would offer. Oh, I don't know. Will this burnt men confront burned men? No, I don't necessarily think. I mean, they're burnt for very different reasons. Like, the burned men are burning themselves as part of some weird like tribal cult because they're primitive, versus Sandor Clegane was burned to try to make him into a man. And so I don't know. There's just I think the Hound being on Quiet Isle seems good enough for me. I mean, if something comes along where he needs to come back, but I don't know. Yes, Spotted Silva was probably captured by the Golden Company in Estermont. Jon Con asks for all captives. This will probably affect the Arianne story, right? Yes, definitely. Spotted Silva is definitely coming together with Arianne at one point. At least that's definitely how the fanfic is doing it. But it seems like, yeah, that George had planned this. He could have sent Spotted Silva honestly anywhere in the story, and he throws her at Estermont, you know, just so Jon Con can pick her up and she can be in the story again. So he doesn't do it to the others, right? He throws Dre and Garen to Essos, because where no point of views are, and you know, but one last person that can tell us what happened in the desert is brought back. there's a reason. There's a reason for it. So yeah, the only reason she was thrown in Estermont is because George wanted her to be brought back to Arion's story so that she could talk about what happened in the desert. You know, that's I think that's pretty clear. Um, oh my gosh, Victor. This is my old friend of mine. Old friend of mine. In the fanfic, do you tell people um if their submission is used, or do we just find out when it's posted? Well, everybody is kind of used in a sense. Um, I don't email people afterwards and say this is what you contributed, um, and this is how it was used. Essentially, like I read them all and I try to piece together different pieces, and keep in mind that all all submissions, like even if something is not used, like it still generates ideas in people's heads for other things. So a lot of times, one thing I think is kind of I want every person that submits to know is that, like, just because you don't visually see one of your words in the fanfic doesn't mean it wasn't like used, because a lot of times you have to go down a path exploring some idea, and it might lead to something else, and it might come back in some other form on, like, well, this doesn't work and therefore we're going to do this. And so you don't know that actually, like, it was very useful that some idea was put forward that was then rejected again, like rebelled against, but it was important to have that in the first place. So all of them, you get a lot of very, very interesting stuff in there, and a lot of stuff is explored. And a lot of times it's just like, sometimes it's an idea, that somebody has, a random character, a theme, So a lot of times I'm not sure if everybody can tell, when they read and they go, oh yes, that was me, but I hope they do. I hope they do. According to the wiki, crane women can skin change. Is this in the World of Ice and Fire or something? Let me see this. Oh, okay. There's this thing in the World of Ice and Fire with Garth Greenhand, and he says, Rose of Red Lake, a skin changer able to transform into a crane at will, a power some say still manifests from time to time in the women of House Crane, her descendants. This on screen here for a second. Am I reading too much into this? That this is like Dragon X gene right there? I mean, it only manifests in women occasionally. I mean, that means it has to be like X chromosome linked, right? Double X. You can transform into a crane if you got double X chromosomes. Oh, maybe. Dragon X confirmed. Okay. What's your favorite A Song of Ice and Fire conspiracy theory? Has there ever been a real world conspiracy theory that you believed in? I'm trying to think of the conspiracy theories that exist in the story right now. Right now, there's obviously the Maester dragon killing conspiracy. Then fans have a theory that there is a conspiracy of the House of Black and White to like end the world, and we do know that there's like a secret society. But do they have like a death cult, actually like doomsday death cult kind of thing? And obviously, House of the Undying has a kind of group of people together and things like that. Some people think that there's like an Order of the Green Hand conspiracy. And I don't mean the channel. I mean like actually in the story, like there's a conspiracy of an Order of the Green Hand of characters. And then I suppose there's the Illyrio Varys conspiracy to put on Aegon on the throne. But I don't know if there's any other. I guess the Grand Northern conspiracy of like Manderleys and Umbers. But I mean, I guess I like the Maester theory the most. The Maester conspiracy theory the most. I think it just has the coolest effect of flipping the script on the story that's been there the whole time. Though I mean, I like the Manderley Umber stuff too. But has there ever been a real world conspiracy theory that I believe in? No, not really. Not really. Conspiracies are really hard to actually put in, and I just don't think that they really happen very much in real life. Preston looks like he's aged 20 years in the last 4. Jeez. I mean, I did have kids, but I don't know. I mean, I think I looked my age. Chris, I always think it's kind of funny the you're old jokes. I mean, isn't it like one cow like 2 spaces back in line, like laughing at another cow about to like go into the butcher, be like, aha, you're about to get butchered. Like, we're all fucking getting old. Like, we're all gonna die. Jesus Christ. Oh man. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. When I look on Facebook, most people don't look that great. What's the thematic difference between magic and psionics, and how are glamours explained as non-magic? Just read the fanfic. Keep up the great work. So I think the thematic difference between like magic and like telepathy, telekinesis is one, like genre. Yes, obviously telekinesis is magic. It's obviously magic, but we kind of accept it as something that exists in the sci-fi genre, as something that could be scientific, weirdly, right? The same with telepathy, that somehow there can be like beams and stuff. And I think it's because that they still operate by a certain set of rules. And I understand that, like, that people like Brandon Sanderson have like magic systems with very logical, like magic kind of things going on. And I think in that respect, he's like blending sci-fi with fantasy. But I think magic is just when there's just no operating rules and just fucking stuff just happens. Like when you play Dungeons and Dragons, there is no explanation for why the wish spell should work, or why a healing spell should work, or why, you know, summoning spells should work, or transmutation or transformation spells. Like, they're just spells. It's just stuff that happens. Um, so that's what I'm saying is it's just there's no hope. There's no hope for any sort of like scientific explanation on how that could function. And there's no rules either. Like Hermione goes to a school where there's a literal time traveling like device that she's able to get a hold of, like, you know, that's just there. You know, when George describes like time travel, he like goes into like explanation of the werewood and the memories and things like this and telepathic thought. There's some sort of like explanation to it. I'm not saying it's like it completely makes sense, but there's an attempt at it. If you watch like Next Generation, yeah, when they sit there and go, well, what if we reverse the polarity of the neutrino band? That might create a quantum bubble around our ship. Like, yeah, that's a bunch of fucking gibberish. But like, and it's magic in the end. But at least there's like a weird attempt, versus just like, I'm just not even trying. I'm just gonna not try, and it's just gonna be magic. And so that's what I honestly see though in this story. You don't see just something absolutely crazy that does not have any explanation. Like, no one has summoned a horse. No one has summoned a demon. No one has just like, regenerated an arm. No one has granted somebody a wish. No one has turned invisible, Now, as for glamours, like specifically, they go into what they are. Like, there's a long explanations of different types of glamours and how glamours might work, whether it be like you're telekinetically like moving your face because, Arya sees like ripples or whatever, versus like influencing people's thought, like having suggestion, which sounds more like telepathy, some sort of like, empathic link to make somebody, versus just wearing like a prosthetic nose, he goes into those explanations. So, there's all these elements there, like, his no four-legged dragons thing. What is most difficult with the fanfic? All the houses, understanding the main players, motives, and others, or the religions? What's slowing down George R. R. Martin? What's most difficult for me, and I think the other editors, is really like capturing. I think the writing, for me, like the prose is the hardest part. Like, really capturing George R. R. Martin's like style and having it sound good and having it be something that people want to read. Like, for me, the storytelling comes easy. Some people say like, oh, these are really great like story ideas, but I don't know, that just comes easy to me. But maybe I've just watched too much fiction or something, and I just, I'm able to keep track of all the characters just because there's a lot of resources online, and because there's so many editors who also like know the story in and out. We catch each other all the time. Like, all the time somebody's like, wait a minute, this doesn't, why is this here? Why is this here? And, let's include a little Easter egg here, or that doesn't make sense, So there are certain things that when you have multiple minds makes it easier, like remembering all of the different characters and what they did in the lore. Like when you have a bunch of people and when you have like the wiki and stuff like that, it's easier. But the writing is the hard part. But what's weird with George R. R. Martin, I'm sure it's the reverse. I'm sure George R. R. Martin can write great prose in his sleep, but he might have trouble like remembering all the different characters and where they are. I mean, he can look at the wiki too, but and I think maybe he has a storytelling problem like coming up with what's going to happen next. I mean, I just don't get it. Like I say, like why would George write a chapter like Tyrion 7 where he goes to Volantis? It's just this beautiful long chapter that does nothing. You know, like why is he unwilling to advance the plot? Like why? It's so beautiful. I wish I could write as well as he can, but also the chapter doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. So I don't know. I think George is having trouble telling the story and advancing the story and maybe remembering where all the characters are going, but he should be able to write good prose in his sleep. I mean, the guy's been doing it for a long time. George R. R. Martin loves doing that with his nicknames too. Giant is short. Raph the Sweetling isn't. Pretty Maris isn't. Oh, that's true. Sam the Slayer, you know. Everybody's the opposite of there. Was that the idea that like? I mean, we find out that like, you know, is Arya horseface? Like not actually horsefaced? Like she is said to be beautiful. In A Feast for Crows. Or no, or it might be in A Dance with Dragons, but like why, like, you know, are these names, every nickname is ironic in the story. But this is about Fool Frey. He's not really a fool. This is about Battlestar. Binging does not make it better. Battlestar made me motion sick with a gratuitous shaky cam. Yeah, it's true. It was so unique at the time. Situational comparison with the Mexican embassy, and is that the are you talking about the Iranian? So right now there is a very, very I don't know how much of the news is this in like regular news, but like I can't believe it's not. I'm looking at like Washpo front page, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe it's not. It's not even making it. There is a really serious diplomatic incident between Mexico and Ecuador that happened, and it's so diplomacy around the world relies on this idea that each little country gets their own safe space within a country. You know, it's like officially their land and all of this kind of stuff. And every country on earth like recognizes this kind of situation. And like even the worst dictatorships, you know, like give when they have diplomatic relations, like we'll give a piece of land so that you can have an embassy and we'll not touch it and you can do what you want there. And that's the whole deal. And so in Ecuador, some dudes like went into the Mexican embassy in Ecuador for safety to claim asylum. And the Ecuadorian police just busted into the embassy and arrested him anyway. Okay. Huge, like just huge faux pas. Like you do not do this. Now, Iran did do this during the did this to the American embassy in '79. But this is something that's just not done. You do not do this. And so now, like all around the world, everyone's like, Ecuador, you done fucked up. Like, oh my God. So it is huge. Like Mexico has cut diplomatic ties with Ecuador. It's a really, really big, serious problem. There are all sorts of incidents. Like it's amazing. Like when you go around the world, like for instance, when the Taliban like took over in Afghanistan, they still didn't just like storm the U.S. embassy. Like they still kind of like stayed off the land. It's the same when like when Libyan forces like took over again, and like the Misratans like took over in Libya. Like they didn't go on to the embassy compound. Like random thugs and that we would call terrorists, some would call freedom fighters, like respect the diplomatic situation that you don't storm somebody's embassy. And freaking Ecuador just did it, like out of nowhere. Anyway, it's gonna be Ecuador is in bad place right now. You just don't do it because the thing is like once one country breaks this kind of agreement, then all diplomacy breaks down. Like all countries need to have assurance that their embassies are a safe place. But man, this should be much bigger news than it is. That Ecuador did this. It's just and Varys has no cock, but Varys probably does have a cock. That's the thing, right? Yeah, I love how Game of Thrones pulled him out after being gone for 2 seasons, just to have him retread the same ground and contribute nothing to thematically. Yeah, we're talking about the Hound here. Yeah, it's true. It's just like, what's the point? What's the point of like reawakening somebody? It's sort of like, it's like any horror movie, right? Like, why, why bring him back? Okay, where are we? I'm finally catching up. Did we talk about Candace Owens versus Ben the Wet Shapiro? So Candace Owens finally got fired from the Daily Wire because she was saying anti-Jewish stuff, and Ben Shapiro was like, "Okay, you've crossed the line." And it sounds like essentially Candace Owens is too conservative and too racist for Ben Shapiro, which says a lot, right? The Bridge of Skulls doesn't make sense. If the wall was built to keep people out, why build it? Can't predate the wall or would be connected to nothing. What's the Bridge of Skulls even made of? Like, is it? I mean, you're bringing up a good point. This is the Fantasy Flight game version of it, that they're saying it's just like a stone bridge that might cross the chasm. It's just a bridge that traverses the gorge. And so I brought this up because I was like, was it like a rope bridge, you know, like, or what's the point? Like, what's the point of it? Um, if the wall was built to keep people out, why build it? Well, I mean, the wall always had gates, right? So it's not that they wanted to make everything, untraversable. Um, they just kind of have easily to defend areas. So, I mean, I don't think it's any different than putting gates in the wall, like logically speaking, right? Like you build the wall so people can't get through, but then you have gates that are easily defended, um, so that you know at these choke points you can keep people out. And this is a choke point like any other, um, that stops people, you know. So I don't necessarily think it's any different than having a gate in the wall. I don't know. Um, I don't know. Maybe if somebody else has some ideas on like defense wise, like why this would be any worse than putting a gate in the. I mean, I don't know why they should build it. Period. Like, I mean, this is a. Let me pull out the. So we also have like our wall of the, our map of the wall. And so, when they built all of these sorts of things, like all the towers, like people could go through many different locations. And so, was there a need? Was there a huge need enough that you'd spend the effort to build this bridge across a chasm to have that there? I'm trying to think like I guess it gets you to the other side of the milk water. Does the milk water must like flow in the bottom of this of the gorge. So I imagine that the bridge is allowing some crossing into the Frostfangs. Somebody was like, you know what? The Frostfangs, we really need some good access to this desolate land where no one lives. Um, let's build a bridge. Is there? Let me pull out the actual north of the wall map because I don't want to trust all these other creations here. All right, so we get the Bridge of Skulls. It must go over the Milkwater. Must go down the middle of the gorge. So somebody wanted access to this side of the river, the Frostfang side of the river, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they just wanted access to the Frostfangs. They have one single easily defendable choke point. Yeah, I mean, because I mean, say let's say this hypothetical situation where all of the wildlings decide that they're going to go to go over here, build ships, and cross over, and the Night's Watch wants to be able to like attack them while they're building their ships. It would be nice to have a little bridge to be able to do that. One could say that there's like some reasons to have defense, to have that bridge there. Be like it allows them to get to the other side of the of the milk water for military action. That'd be my guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it. I mean, and it could predate the wall, in that people would just want to get to the other side of the milk water. Keep in mind that, like, before the wall is built, it might be that the weather was different. It might have been more green there. Um, uh, uh, uh. Much is made about Ned's bones going back to Winterfell, but nothing about Robb's. Hmm. It's an interesting idea. I mean, it's something I didn't think about. I mean, obviously, like, I've heard of people talk about what happened to Robb's head, because at some point after Robb dies, they obviously, like, cut off his head and they put a wolf's head on top of the body. Whether, people say, does that really make sense if it's a direwolf head? I don't know, but whatever the case, direwolf head might be too big, but um, it's fine. So people talk about Robb's skull, but what happened to Robb's bones? Um, we know that they threw cattle into the river, but what happened to Robb? Um, uh, I guess they're still at the twins. Maybe, they could have smashed his bones up or something. Yeah, we have no idea what happened to Robb's bones. I mean, you're right that Robb's bones should go back to get a statue and all that mumbo jumbo. Um, hmm. Now there's this interesting idea that um, that Cat was thrown in the river as a sort of parody of the Tully funeral rites of, like, being on the river and burning in the river or whatever. Or maybe they just dumped him in the river. But would you do a parody of Robb's by encasing him in some sort of uh, tomb? But that seems some mock tomb. But that seems like a lot of effort. But who knows what they did with his head? Who knows what they did with their bodies? He's probably just in a I mean, honestly speaking, they would have had to dig a mass grave for all the people that died. They probably just dumped him in the mass grave, and that's the end of it. Um, an unmarked grave. But you are right that a lot is made of Ned's bones. Nobody said anything about Robb's bones. Robb reanimated with a wolf head needs to happen. So the yeah, there is this talk about, like, is the direwolf head too big for Robb's body, and therefore, like, because there is this theory that Grey Wind is actually still alive, and he actually escaped, but they didn't want anyone to know he escaped, so they cut off a regular wolf's head and put it on Robb's body to make it seem like Grey Wind died. Um, But I think I actually think, let's see. The direwolf is not actually that much, unlike in the show where they made the direwolves pretty big. I'm not sure if the direwolves are actually as big in the books. Like weight wise, they might be like 3 times bigger, but historically, are they really like um as tall as, I'm talking about, like certainly the direwolf, like historically, right? Because the direwolf was a real animal at one time. Um, so like the real historical direwolf, the extinct animal, it's maybe three like the weight wise, it's like the mass of like 3 wolves. But is the direwolf in Ice and Fire is not actually that big. I don't know why I'm actually like going on this like tangent. But I don't think they're that big. It says they can grow larger than ponies and twice the size of a large hound. So really, they're not that big. They're not that big. So maybe the direwolf head on his body would be fine. But yeah, I'm just guessing Massgrave. Last week you said you got caught up on a paragraph in Arya 3 and what Varys said. He has the bastard. He was talking about Jon. Also, have you read the deep dive about Daemon's bastards I sent you? Oh, could he as the bastard be talking about Jon? So this is what we're talking about. In Arya 3, we have the famous conversation between Varys and Illyria, one of the few moments where they're actually being honest. And and in the one of the most analyzed paragraphs in a Game of Thrones, because this is like actually Varys being honest, which we don't get very much. So he gets to a point where he says, "Yet Lord Stark's the one who troubles my sleep. He has the bastard, he has the book, and soon enough he'll have the truth." And so the question is, now when we read this, we assume that the bastard is Gendry, right? That Gendry proves that Robert has kids with the seed is strong, and they always have black hair and all of that, and that this means that Joffrey and Tommen and Myrcella are bastards. But the question is, okay, could he has the bastard actually be talking about Jon? And soon enough, he'll have the truth. I'm just trying to think in this like if he didn't say Lord Stark troubles my sleep, that would be, and it was just he has the bastard, he has the book, and soon enough I'll have the truth. I'd be like, oh, what is he talking about? Is he talking about Tyrion bringing the dragon book to the wall with Jon? Because then he has the bastard, he has the book, and soon enough he'll have the truth. Like, but we're talking about Ned, and in this situation, Ned doesn't have Jon. Jon is on the wall, and the book he's talking about is clearly the Book of Lineages. We can't think of any other book that Ned has through his time. So, and we can't be talking about Tyrion here because now we're talking later, and now his wife has abducted Tyrion Lannister. So this he in this sentence is clearly Ned, because we're talking about Ned and we will go straight to his wife. So it's very clear that Ned has the bastard, he has the book, and soon enough he'll have the truth. I cannot think of any other book. Yeah, there's lots of bastards, but I cannot think of any other book that Ned has besides the Lineages book, which is about Baratheon lineages. And I mean, I suppose you could use it for whatever Targaryen lineages or whatever, but this book was about how people look, right? What they look like. And he has the bastard. I can't see how it's anybody besides Gendry. And I mean, it'd be really interesting if you could come up with a way it's not about Gendry and the lineage book. he has the bastard. Have you read the deep dive about Daemon's bastards I sent you? I have to go back. I mean, if you sent to the recently, I've been checking the Fanfiction email more than say Business Inquiry. My Business Inquiry one it's just too filled with spam. So yeah, send it to me again. But I'm blank. I'm forgetting about Daemon's possible bastards because we certainly don't know of any that he has. It's true. Who's left to care about Robb's bones? That's the thing, is who's left to even. I mean, the only one that cares about that Ned's bones is Lady Dustin. And everybody else has forgotten about Ned's bones. No one cares. Makes a barrow for Robb despite his custom. They would have to know a lot about the North, but yes, but I guess. Besides John Con, any queer point of views in the fanfic? Well, we kind of had the prologue contains a character who's at least thinks he's going about a gay relationship, but he's kind of weirdly mistaken, which is the funny, weird thing about the whole thing. Is that Maester John thinks that Aleros is a man and is in love with him, but it turns out that Aleros is a woman. So I quite like the absolute weird ambiguity of the whole thing, like on like what it means for Maester John. He's just, no labels, he's just confused guy. But so yeah, he's definitely, he doesn't know that Aleros is a woman and goes for Aleros. So the certainly the prologue. I'm trying to think of anybody else, because we're not going to add any more point of views except for like maybe epilogues and stuff. So, and I think the epilogue to the story is going to be Ghost, but we'll see when that time comes. But so yeah, I mean, so we got Maester John. I'm trying to think besides John Con, because the others are what? Melisandre, is Aeron. We don't know, but we don't know what's going on with Aeron. He never describes himself that way. Then we've got what? Tyrion, Arya, Bran. No, nobody else. Nobody else. Brienne's straight. So, so we got it in there. We got it in there with the prologue. You know. Oh, gross. But could they have put the direwolf's head over Robb's head? Huh. Hmm. I didn't think about. I mean, I don't think. I'm just thinking of like if there's enough room in the neck to like shove in the head inside the neck. Um, or if they specifically talk about his, if they behead him. Um, it says his head is removed, according to Tyrion 7. So I guess they say his. I guess they say his. Um, oh wait. Grey Wind has his head removed and sewn onto Robb's body. I mean, I guess you're right that there might have not even, you know, if you just sew the head on top and put the, yeah, I suppose the head could still be on. They don't need to have cut Robb's head off. Yeah, it might still be there. We still haven't figured out where the body is, but you're right that like they didn't necessarily need to remove Robb's head. Um, where do you see Davos' story going? Hardhome, commanding the Manderley fleet, taken as a slave by the Lysene. His arc is the biggest enigma to me. I think with regards to what George planned was, you know, you obviously get the Skagos thing out of the way, and then you have him bring Rickon and Osha back. But then there's the question of like, where does he go after that? Because you feel like if George's original plan was burning Shireen, he can't be at Castle Black for that, because there's no way he would tolerate any of that, right? Or he'd just get himself killed. Um. So, you know, is he somehow hanging around Winterfell and then, you know, makes it to Jon later? I mean, you are right that I don't see like much, like his story is so linked with Stannis, and he has so much faith in Stannis that almost like, what do you do with him without Stannis? The show just replaced Stannis with Jon and never explained why Davos was suddenly fine with this switch. Like all of a sudden being like, well, maybe Jon could be resurrected. I'm going to go talk to the woman I hate and have her do that, you know? So, you know, we had that. I've been thinking about Davos, and I'm like, you know what? It would just be fun to throw him in a different location. Like, okay, now that the North is seemingly wrapped up, let's send Davos as a messenger to, and you say, okay, let's um, uh, send him to try to treat with some people in the neck, you know, or you send him into the Riverlands or somewhere. Then you send him to a different part of the story. Send him to the Iron Isles, you know, or something, you know. To, you know, just to throw characters around. But you know, I almost feel like the North is a big ticking time bomb with the others coming. That the more you have them up there, the more someone's going to get killed. So might as well send Davos south. But you're right that I don't of the people in the north, like he seems like he has the least to do besides like bringing back Rickon. Like once he brings back Rickon, like what do you do with the guy? George didn't even have very much to do with him in the first place, right? He spends a Storm of Swords. He spends most of Storm of Swords like getting back to Stannis and then worrying about Edric Storm. And you got this Edric Storm plot that people don't know what to do with. And then and that's it. And then it's like in Clash, he's at least the perspective of Stannis bringing the army over. But even that takes, he only has 3 chapters, so he does seem underutilized. Dance with Dragons is again like him trying to get back to Stannis. So I do agree with you that he's kind of an enigma that we're not really sure what to do with him. So we occasionally need points of view. So he's there, but he seems like getting back to Stannis and trying to free Edric Storm, is what he ends up doing. So I think it'd be interesting to have him send him somewhere new, somewhere interesting. Hear about the fate of Stannis from somewhere else. Has there been any material that suggests post-apocalyptic structures beneath, like the tunnels or underground ruins, or things from the surface? I mean, I think that all the post-apocalyptic elements, I think, are one, you've got a lot of tunnels and tunnels underneath the earth. In previous stories, like in the House of the Worm or Dying of the Light, he talks, he has people going into the earth to survive a kind of apocalyptic world, which, it all makes sense with a long night, but then the long night might be a nuclear winter. And then the other things is like we have these levels of technology that are way past what they have in the current story, like Storm's End or the Wall. How on earth are they building those things? And then kind of the other thing is, histories that don't really make sense. Peoples that shouldn't be in the same in where they are. Like, why do you have pale people in Karth? Why are there pale people in Valyria? That doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of just weird things like that kind of point to, maybe an apocalyptic, like a point in the story where everyone was subterranean and then they kind of like come out at some point. But I don't know if and then I think there's also just like the sand ship and Naga's bones and all sorts of other weird stuff that might be from a previous societies. Okay. Should there be a time skip, like 6 to 12 months between books 6 and 7? Characters can mature, others can take over the north, Daenerys can travel Westeros, winter sets in. That's a very interesting idea. Because when I really thought about where would I end things at the end of the Winds of Winter, I would say at least have Dany make it to Westeros at the end of the book. At least have the others invade at the end of the book, or the wall fall. At least have a few things like that happen. But then it's like, okay, or maybe, I mean, that's a good idea in the sense that George's original plan was obviously the 3-act structure of War of the Five Kings was part 1, the Dance of the Dragons, or Dany's invasion, Dance of the Dragons was part 2, and the others' invasion was part 3. And we have not even gotten to like part 2, right? Like Dany hasn't even invaded yet. We haven't even had the Dance of the Dragons. Aegon's arrived. Dany needs to get back, and then they need to fight. But it seems like it's going to take Dany a long time, like the entire book, to get back. So maybe you could say the beginning of A Dream of Spring would be their fight, and then the second half would be the others. But you're right that if you did some sort of time skip, you could say, oh, well, Dany and Aegon have been fighting for 6 months, and then have it kind of close and end quickly, and then have the others. So I could see that you could do a time skip and skip over kind of part 2, the Dance of the Dragons, and just kind of say, well, the Dance of the Dragons kind of happened, and now we're here at the end. But it wouldn't be so bad. That wouldn't be so bad. I mean, similar time skips. I mean, there were big month-long time skips in a Game of Thrones. We just haven't seen them lately. If you got to skip to the ending, you got to skip to the ending. Is the Brotherhood using the Hound helm as a ruse to lure people into traps? Also, I agree with your thoughts on Sandor. I'll add Sandor digging others' graves. Poetic justice. Yeah, I've thought a bit about the Hound helm. And, the Hound helm. So, A Dance with Dragons ends with Brienne lying to Jaime, right? She does not have Sansa. Sansa is not with the Hound. That's a complete lie. Now, the only person that does have the Hound, the Hound comes in, is that Lem has the Hound helm. So at some point, she seems to be trying to trick Jaime into seeing the Hound helm and then maybe pursuing somebody thinking it's the Hound, and in fact, it's Lem. So yeah, it does seem like, it'd be part of some sort of lure. If there is a connection between, just telling him, oh, he's with the Hound, and then getting him there. But yeah, it does seem like, oh, I'm going to use the Hound helm that he has to convince him that he's coming in to see that, to find Sansa. So yeah, I think that was the plan. Is Sandor digging the graves of others poetic justice? Yeah, I mean, I think digging graves, I guess it's this idea of trying to put things to rest, and so Sandor is trying to put other people's to rest, just like he's trying to put his demons to rest and find peace. When you bury people, they always talk about, oh, they're finally at rest. Well, the idea is that that he's also finally at rest here. So I do like that idea. Okay. Carmine's still here. Carmine finished his episode of Battlestar. He can't be asking me so many questions about Battlestar. I'm eventually going to spoil it by accident. Okay, we made it to the end. Catelyn was twerking all over Winterfell. What? We'd have to wait until the next eclipse for Dream. Oh god. So here in DC, it's been hard. It's been hard. Like all the eclipse glasses are kind of sold out. There's one hardware store that had them, and I went and I missed it. It closed by like 20 minutes, so I can maybe go tomorrow morning to get some eclipse glasses. Though my wife wanted some too, and I won't be able to give them to her before she has to go to work. So, um, huh. The Winds of Winter should be Dany raiding Illyrio's mansion in Pentos and finding out he's not there. Motivation for her to attack Westeros. Huh. That's an interesting idea. People talk about like, oh, she needs to go to Pentos because she needs to give Pentos to the Windblown. But it's like she never agreed to any of that. So I don't know why, like, necessarily she would go to Pentos unless she really wants to face Illyrio and wants answers. Which maybe, I mean, if she goes to Karth and Quaithe tells her some crazy story, then maybe she would need to find Illyrio to try to get some answers. I think he'll announce tomorrow to coincide with the full eclipse. That would be very, very nice. I don't know about that. There's no announcement. Winds of Winter will be released tomorrow. This is will be announced tomorrow. Man, that's I don't know about that. Daddy twerking all over Illyrio's pants. It's amazing. It's one of the ways that people did not think that A Song of Ice and Fire would devolve to was just characters twerking everywhere. Um, Unpopular opinion. It's way more fun speculating with folks on books that will never come out. If the series is done, there probably wouldn't be such an active fandom. Yeah, but eventually people are going to get tired. It used to be a lot more. I mean, the number of people is definitely dropping. Um, the but not that it isn't very very fun. Danny twerking. I mean, how many twerking characters? I mean, Pretty Maris twerking all over the place. Um, who else would be twerking? Um, Septa Unella. I seriously believe the Winds of Winter will drop in 2025. That's very optimistic of you. Very optimistic of you. Um, Feast for Crows had just too much twerking. Dance of Dragons not enough. Who twerked? Who twerked in Feast? Like, I mean, it was like there's like a Cersei 6.5 chapter where it's just her and Tata Merriweather just twerking around like for no reason, dancing it up. Mel twerking at the wall, everything melts. Pia was Pia twerking? I mean, the sand sticks definitely twerk. I mean, I do not think I could see Obara Sand twerking. I could see maybe Lady Nim twerking around. Gilly twerking on the cinnamon wind. What's happening, man?
Preston, I love you, but God, that was so white of you. Holy shit! What is happening? That was the whitest thing you've done. Jesus.
What twerking?
What was that little dance move? What was that? What the hell was
Did I
what
dance? Was I
was a
like
little
you don't see my butt is actually doing like perfect twerking.
I'm sure. I'm sure. What I miss? Are you getting off soon?
Yeah. So you finished another episode of the biggest disappointment in TV.
First off, I'm enjoying it so far. Season 1, baby. Let's go. I'm getting on season 2 probably tonight. Dude, fuck Gaius Baltar. What a piece of shit. That the way that episode ends. What? And I hate that fucking face that he makes. Oh, hate that face.
Yeah, you're supposed to hate Gaius Baltar. You know, of course
I
they
actually
make
liked
him
him for a
like,
little bit. He was hilarious,
of
but
course they make him like a little Napoleon, give him Napoleon complex. You know, in love with this tall blonde kind of situation. Um, but yeah. What? When's the last? Wasn't twerking like 10 years ago? Or what? People
no, it's still a
stopped
thing.
twerking, right?
Oh, it's still a thing,
Kind of.
kind of a
So,
thing.
have you ever seen like I want to say it's kind of a pan Caribbean thing, like Caribbean dancing, where the women will just essentially, if you're on the dance floor, the women will put like their palms to the ground and then just like start shaking their butt. And it's like very racy. I saw when I was in Trinidad and I saw it in Jamaica, but I remember like talking to like a Jamaican American guy who's like, oh my God, like it's not like I'm a modest guy or but it's just like you're on the dance floor and a girl like puts her palms to the ground and starts shaking her butt and you're just like, oh my gosh, where am I? It's not quite twerking, but it's very similar.
Hmm.
You don't know what I'm talking about.
Not really. No, you'll have to show me a video on YouTube right now. Risk getting.
Copyright struck. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Um, oh my goodness. Does she see? These are just like regular twerking. I mean, they're just doing regular butt stuff. But I'm talking like palms on the ground, shaking butt.
You have to send it to me on Facebook. Don't risk that
I
shit.
know, I know. I can't. But I was pretty amazed. I was pretty amazed at the. Um. Ah well. Ah well. Fairy
I'll just have
twerking,
to imagine
twerking
the
the
fire.
fairy, regular. It's it's very racy. It's very racy. I'm just saying. Um. To see it in a regular club is just um I don't think I'm going to be able to find anything, but like I was at I forget if I was there for if Carnival had had uh had corresponded with Oktoberfest. Maybe it was just Oktoberfest. But here's something. Let me see if I can here real quick. No, is this okay? Did I get this? Okay. So you can kind of see like um now it starts out like this where everyone's just kind of shaking their butt. And then all of a sudden like someone will just like put their palms on the floor and then just like really start like shaking the butt. That's some pretty incredible. There we go. See, look, that guy like went straight to the ground and just started thrusting. I'm saying like there's also just like straight up. Ah well. Ah well. Where's my comment?
Also, why are you telling everyone your plan for the fanfic?
What I'm not.
You're kind of telling everybody like where you plan on going with the fanfic. Don't you think it should be a surprise?
Well, I mean, not everybody watches my streams, man. How am I getting my comments back? Come on, where are my comments? Where are my comments, boys? Where am I? Ugh, whatever. I can't even get my comments back. um,
This is interesting.
there they are.
Theory of over here George wrote a screed on how shows can't write endings based on
Yeah,
the ending of Battlestar. Really? I didn't know
that's
this.
yeah. Unfortunately, if you read it, you'll be spoiled on the ending of Battlestar.
Okay, so we'll have to. You want to do a quick discussion on that when I'm done?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's funny because we were talking about it, and everyone in the comments was like was like mentioning George's comment on it, which was very ironic because he's like trashing the ending of a show, and like the ending of his show was so horrible. Now they end in different ways, but it's not great. It's not like he really hated the end of Battlestar, and I agree with him. But if you read it, you will be spoiled. I think Varys was worried about Ned hates lands, rebelling against Robert as the relationship was deteriorating, putting Jon on the throne. Promise me, Ned could rally most regions against the Storm West. Email resent. Now the thing is like, how would Varys know about like let's assuming R plus Alec was J, how would Varys find out about it, right? Like wouldn't it all would he hear something from Starfall all that time? Would he figure it out? Um and if it were a problem for Aegon, why wouldn't Varys have killed Jon Snow like a long time ago? Um So it starts getting complicated. But I don't see anyone really knowing about like a lot of people like bring up these like, oh, maybe Maester Lewin knew something and that's why he wanted John on the wall, or maybe Aemon knew something. All these people secretly knew something, but I don't know. I don't see much evidence that anyone knew about John. Oh, thoughts on it? Sam Gilly Tyrion love triangle. Uh, hmm. Hmm. Trying to think, would Gilly be into Tyrion? Here's the thing: is I do wonder if, in some sort of weird, you know how like in Victorian times, like being fat was attractive. Like maybe Gilly thinks Sam is attractive because he's fat. Is that a possibility? I just don't see anyone ever being like, I don't see anyone being realistically into Tyrion. It just doesn't seem, he has no nose. How could anyone ever like have a crush on Tyrion at this point? Like he has no nose. He and he was an ugly dwarf to begin with. Do you buy like Carmine? Let me ask you. You know how um Penny like kisses Tyrion in A Dance with Dragons and like is like, you think I'm pretty, and does like weird flirting and stuff. Like, do you think that's legit? Do you think like she really likes Tyrion? Or do you think she's scheming?
I don't know anymore. For all I know, Penny's a fucking Cylon. I honestly don't know anymore. I really don't. I always thought like Tyrion didn't like other little people because I don't know, some
He hates
self-loathing
himself,
there.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like Baltar going for tall people. I mean, like he's Baltar's not going to go for a short woman.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, you said you're a short guy, right? Do you are you only attracted to tall girls? Are you more attracted to tall girls? You
Uh,
don't care.
I don't really care, but the last four women were taller than me, like
Yeah.
taller than average American women should be,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
women
yeah.
in general should be, like 5'11" tall and or taller, which is weird. I wasn't going for that, but there it is.
Um, trying to think.
Not that you would know anything about that. I don't think there's a tall woman. I don't think there's a woman taller than you that you could
Well,
stand
I'll
next
tell you
to.
that like when I dated the before I met my wife, I would say like my dating pool was like one half um like super tall girls and then like one half kind of short girls. Like no medium height women in my life. Like always super tall or super short.
There's no
Um
middle ground.
no, I mean I think it had something to do with like tall women were very very interested in me. So they would so that was like understandable why they would be there. And then I don't know, I think I like maybe I liked short girls and so like and so you had these like two kind of things, like people that like me and therefore I'm introduced to people that are very tall or people that I am attracted to and so people that are kind of short. So I would have nobody medium height. But man, but it's such a funny part of Battlestar though. Um, Preston couldn't find a girl taller than him if he had the entire WNBA as a dating pool. That's true. That's true. However, I will tell you that as somebody that's 6'6", when you come when I meet a girl who's like 6 feet tall, like they're immediately like, oh my gosh, this person's taller than me. Boom. Like it's very, very you know. Carmine only likes Littlefinger because he's short like him. Oof.
Wait. Who? Aiden Gillian? Aiden Gillian. First off, Sophie Turner shot the fuck up. I don't know what that was awkward watching them like kiss in
Right, but
season
little I think
four.
Littlefinger in the books is shorter than Aiden Gillian, right? Aiden Gillian is 5'9", so he is completely average height. Um, well, I think like Littlefinger is described as being kind of short, or at least he was when he was young. Trying to think. He said he was slight and short for his age as a boy, but he's still a short man, a slender build. Okay, yeah. Um, does Preston often bump his head? Of course I do. Of course. These are like these like questions like do you find it hard to be on planes? Why, yes. um what is Sophie Turner's height? She's only 5'9".
What the fuck? The scene in season 4, she looks taller than him.
Well, also her ex-husband is shorter than her.
Yeah.
See, the thing is you always you see. I'm gonna pull up this page of Sophie Turner here. And this is the problem. You know, here she is, next to Maisie Williams. Maisie Williams is like 2 feet tall. So, and then here's her next to her ex-husband. And so she looks tall all the time because she's just next to short people. But she's not that tall. Like, yes, 5'9" is pretty tall for a woman, but it's not like outrageously tall for a woman. Like my mother was 5'10". You know. She's much tall, you know. Gwendolyn Christie's 6 feet tall.
Gwendolyn Christie and the new Dunk actor, they're the same height.
Oh, Gwendolyn Christie 6'3".
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Careful when you search up Gwendolyn Christie. I was gonna say careful when you because she did some kind of like tasteful nude photograph thing, and that might be on Google. I don't want you to get fucked up for that.
yeah, actually, the Bran actor is about 5'11" now.
Damn, that
Yeah.
kid shot the fuck up.
And then Kit Harington's height is 5'8". So
Oh, thank
Sophie
God.
Turner is taller than yeah. So, oof. Okay, this sort of thing. I gotta show you this picture. So,
God damn.
right? It's just that he's so short.
Thank you, Preston.
How tall are you? You said you're 5'7", right?
Something like that.
Yeah. So you're a little shorter than Kit.
A little bit. Something like that. Never seems to bother a lot of women I encounter. It's so weird. I always hear the stories about like how that's because those women are usually on Tinder and all that. So Tinder girls like the 6'6", 6 inches, 6 foot, 6-figure salary. Which,
I mean, it's so. I mean, I don't know. In reality, like, yes, you like obviously, like all things being equal, women care about that, but they don't really care about it. You know, like they don't really care about it. It's fun. Like I used to joke, like, guys, they spend so much time in the gym doing like bench press. Like they go to the gym like 2 hours a day, do bench press. Like that's not attracting very many women. If you went like 2 hours a day and you were helping out at like an NGO doing charity work, you're attracting so many more women. Like want to just like tutor kids, and like people are like, oh my gosh, he tutors kids. Like that's so much better, right? Like which is more attractive, like pecs or like tutoring kids? So it's the same thing with like the height thing. Like, yeah, all things being equal, sure, but they don't really care. I mean, yes, like women, they want to be taller than they want a guy who's taller than them in heels, is what they often say. As long as he's taller than me in heels, and then you know. Huh, Vari says Violet Eyes in the graphic novel?
I didn't like the Game of Thrones graphic novel. The Duncan Egg Stories graphic novel was better. I feel like the Game of Thrones graphic novel was missing a couple of things.
Yeah. I tutor kids to get laid. the thing is like, if you're gonna do X to get laid, okay, why does it matter what you're gonna do, right? Like lifting weights is accomplishing nothing, and tutoring kids, you're at least helping the world, right? So like you could be like, well, he only tutors kids to get laid, therefore it like negates the good. No, you still fucking did the good. Like it doesn't matter. Like lifting a weight up and down doesn't do anything. It's zero. That does zero for the world. I mean, it doesn't harm the world, but there's this weird thing about like the intentions. Like, who cares? You know. um, women only want one thing. It's disgusting. Have I been over this? How women are only interested in one thing. One thing. Women are
Winds of
interested
Winter?
in what's that?
Winds of Winter?
No, women definitely don't care about that. Women care about one thing, and that is someone who really listens.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem, but just listens, which
That's
you
all
know, like
they
every man
care
has to
about.
learn. Yeah.
Somebody that really listens. Seriously, just be funny. Tutoring kids sounds boring as fuck. It probably is. It's probably fucking horribly boring. It's of course it is. It's as bad as anything else. Technically, working out makes more CO2, I guess. um, this turned into a red pill channel. I gradually didn't notice. What is this red pill? No, no, no. There is no red pilling. Oh
Who the
my
fuck said
gosh.
that? I'm not looking at my screen right now. What dumb fuck said red pill? How are
I don't
what we are
know.
saying red pill at all? Holy
I think
shit!
we're saying very reasonable things.
Very reasonable things. Jesus Christ, this is red pill for you, Jake Lloyd. I'm glad you got bullied, you asshole. Fuck you.
Jake Lloyd. It's not the real Jake Lloyd. If
I
only.
can only
If I had
hope.
the real
If
Jake
only.
Lloyd, oh my gosh, that'd be a dream to have the real Jake Lloyd.
Why? What would you say to him?
I'd be like, dude, you have experienced so much pain. Um, and now you're through to the other side, man. Like you must be strong. You must be a strong man. It's like I was joking, Jesus. He's luckily Carmine's joking back, but
Oh yeah. Crazy Carmine.
imagine talking with somebody all day about kids with learning disabilities. Well, they don't have to have learning disabilities. There's lots of kids you can tutor, like underprivileged kids or like immigrant kids or anything. They're going to be a little more, there's a lot of things you can do. I'm just saying that if you're trying to maximize, look, everybody's trying to maximize their mating potentials, and I'm saying that tutoring kids, you know, is gonna be more effective than bench press. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Um, go on the Taven Packman show. I don't know if we agree on too much. I don't know what we talk about. It's a politics show. um, do you think Littlefinger had any idea of Varys and Illyrio's plans, hence expediting the Stark Lannister conflict? Now, I know that George was asked this question once. He was asked if Illyrio and Littlefinger knew about each other's plans, and they don't. And he said that they don't. That
But
both
the
are kind
show
of
did something
acting
else.
independently. I mean, it seems like Littlefinger just wants to fuck up whatever Varys' plans are, but and they seem curious, but they don't seem to be aware of each other. Um, but it's a fascinating kind of idea of, but I do kind of suspect that George kind of expanded Littlefinger's role um, later on. That he realized he had a good character and was doing more with it. Made him a little more nefarious, being involved in more things. Though he's pretty involved in a Game of Thrones, I guess. So I don't know. Um. Anyway, any last things before I go? Any last people are have a any last things, Carmine, before I sign off? Any more dating
A
advice that you need? I think you're doing fine.
little too fine sometimes. No. I got G Stuff got back to me. He's got some one or two more things that he didn't post in the draft thing. So when we talk to him, he'll share that with us. He's
That
gonna
sounds
send
pretty
you a
fun.
couple pictures. We'll do something with him in maybe a week or two. He needs to compile everything together. So other than that, I just think that's it. What's on the docket? What are we gonna cover or talk about? Because I got one thing, but I'll save that for like a podcast discussion. The
Okay.
Westworld thing,
Okay.
and then Battlestar when I finish that. And what else? That's
That's about it. Um, let's see. Few last things before I go. Can we make a twerking daggering video? I don't know. What happened to Brendan Blackfish? Where'd he go? I think he just got busy with his family and was like, "I'm done with Ice and Fire." Why do you hate on Arya wandering the Riverlands so much? It's like the most thematically important part of the story. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Just seems like that. Preston, were you always bald? Of course not. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like,
what the fuck kind of question is that?
I know. It's like, what? Like, but like I say, man, it's like you're two cows back in the slaughter line, like laughing. Ha ha, look at that cow about to get slaughtered. Like, okay, dude. You know? Like there's a good chance that you're gonna die before me. I'm just saying. Like,
Jesus.
you're close. Ha ha, you're close to death. What? You're closer to death than me. Ha ha. Like what? Um, there's a big difference between someone who makes a big mistake versus someone who is kind of evil. Intentions matter, but there's a huge population making excuses that I stopped caring about intention. Thoughts? Um, I mean, yeah, intentions matter. Obviously, somebody steps on your foot and they say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean it." You kind of go, "Okay." And somebody stomps on your foot, on purpose. You're angry at them. Intentions do matter, but at the same time, like, uh, results matter too. Like it's not the only thing that matters. Um, so I mean, we're talking about like tutoring kids versus lifting weights, right? Um, it's look, everybody's self-interested. Everybody's secretly doing something, for selfish reasons. But like, if you I don't know. I mean, the what I say, like, go tutor kids to get laid. I mean, that's why people there are people that argue that's why people have to do everything. It's why people get their jobs. It's why people like work out. It's why, vanity or whatever. But it's it's as there's no harm in making the world a better place.
Your former I don't want to say employer, but your former crack.com had an article about how a lot of religions were started because the guy was trying to get laid. Like
Yeah.
what's the one with Joseph Smith? Is that Mormons?
Yeah.
like Joseph Smith and Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
That was for started for him to evade taxes and get laid. I'm sure there's a couple others I can't think of right now, but
Yeah, but you'd like to have something where like the end result was something like positive. I don't know. But I need to find my wife before I go bald. My biological clock is ticking. No, I mean seriously, like the hair thing is just it's not that big a deal. Like I get like people worry about it. Like I get that like men like here's the thing that's going on in men's heads. Okay. Men are super focused on what women look like. And so they assume that women are like them and that the women are super focused on what men look like. And women, yeah, they're focused some, but not to the same petty degree as men. Okay. So it's just like don't worry about it so much. Like if you go bald, you go bald. Like the thing is like the deck is already stacked for you as a man in this world so much, so much. And it's stacked for you like economically, socially. It's also stacked for you dating wise. Okay. For the most part, men can date younger. Women don't tend not to date older, which means you've got so many more people that you can date. Um, you can and you know women are impressed by things like confidence and success, and so like if you're 35 and you want to date somebody that's like 28, she's super impressed because she seems like you're so much wiser and you've been in the world and things like that, and it's like the game is stacked to your advantage. And so and then women worry about their biological clocks. So I mean if you want to like scoop up, like you don't have to worry about anything. Like you know when you're like 35, there's a million girls who are like 29 who are like, oh my God, my biological clock is ticking. And you're 35 and you're like, haha, they don't care if you're fucking bald. Like they do not care. They do not care. Like they will not care. It's just, it's so stacked in your favor as a man. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about like going bald. Don't like Carmine, like we make jokes about Carmine being short. He doesn't fucking care because he's
wait,
like
we do.
I mean, you don't fucking. You're doing fine in the realms of like romance.
I'm all right. Yeah.
You know,
Wait, who the fuck is we making jokes? What is this? What is?
Jackie's like, wow. It's like, why are we pretending men aren't getting hair transplants? They do, dude. Of
In
course they
Turkey, where
do.
it's cheaper.
And they look weird and it's a waste of money. It's just like the fucking bench press thing, man. It's men convinced that this is like a really important thing. It's not. It's not. You know, it's just not. Um, you know, Preston is 6'6". This is the thing, but this is the thing is whoever I'm talking to, like you have an advantage of some sort. You have an advantage of some sort, right? Like either you have a really good job or you're really smart or, you know, you might have great eyes or whatever. Like, you know, you've got some strength. Yeah, I'm tall. Okay. Yeah, that's a strength. Absolutely. But somebody, you're going to have a strength out there, you know? Also, like, Turkey transplant is legendary. It's true. There are all these people that go to Turkey for the cheap hair transplant. So I've been on a flight when I had to take a flight to Turkey for work, and it was filled with people. On the way back, it was filled with people with like big bandages around their heads, you know, because they transplant all the hair down here and they put it up here. But it's just
Oh, before you leave, by the way, someone
hmm.
in my server just tagged me, and Nuke Marine says, "Saw your Battlestar Galactica question. I'll say that at San Diego Comic Con in 2006, I asked Ronald D. Moore if he had a broad or more of an outline of where the story was going, not just the plan. He promised in front of thousands that he had the story pretty much planned out. Based on what we got, I think he lied to all of us.
Oh
Lots
yeah.
of missed potential. Even the last season had this amazing fucking episode that developed a returning character, then shit all over it the next. Still amazing first two seasons. I'll get to it. We'll get to it. I'll get to it. We'll do
Yeah,
like a nice
yeah,
convo on that. And because speaking of wasting potential, I'll save this for like a podcast that we're gonna do. But um, this keeps popping up even after I sent you the article. The showrunner for Westworld still wants to finish it, even though the last couple of seasons were not great.
yeah, yeah.
He still wants to finish it.
Yeah,
Who's
no,
the
I mean,
guy?
I saw that. That was pretty incredible.
After that last season where like everything kind of sucked and nothing made sense.
I mean, I think if he only had 2 hours or something to, because he wants it like a movie, right?
Is it
You
a movie? Is
know,
that what he wants?
I think, or does he want a whole nother season?
I'll be very real with you. The only thing, as of right now, that I can think of off the top of my head that got canceled early that really deserves another season to wrap everything up is Raised by Wolves. Everything else, I can't think of anything else that deserves one more final season than Raised by Wolves.
Hmm. Hmm. And people say that about Firefly, and they got their movie.
They got their movie. Where's our Raised by Wolves movie?
There's our Raised by
That
Wolves movie. It's a lot to wrap up in a movie.
they can do it.
um, but yes, I'm busting your balls. I understand that all of us are busting each other's balls. Like we're all joking around, but I'm getting more depressing as this is getting more depressing for me as time goes on. I don't understand what I'm trying to tell people that like it's things are good. Things are good for all of you. Okay. It's a wonderful world out there filled with lots of wonderful people that one can meet. Google Elon before a hair transplant. Oh, he's just he's a weirdo no matter what. I mean, I know I've seen him before his hair transplants, but he's man. Um, Carmine, do you know about Elon Musk's daughter and like what
The
like triggered?
trans
What's that?
was she trans? Is that the trans one? I think he has
Yeah, she's the one
yeah.
that like essentially like his big like falling into conservatism was like because his daughter transitioned. Yeah, and like that's the reason he's like crazy conservative now.
Hold on. Did you see my tweet on what that guy said about liberal women?
What's that?
Like, go to Twitter and look at my tweet. Oh, because Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend had the audacity to say that liberal women were ugly. Just go to twitter.com/red team review and go on my replies. It should be the top, uh, one of the top replies,
Okay, okay, hold on.
not post replies.
Oh, okay.
You can
Um,
share this, by the way. Like, you can share your
okay,
screen.
do I have to like play the video to?
No, he basically just. I think it's quoted there what he says.
It says here, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend. Liberal women tend to be some of the ugliest women I've known. Half of them look like men.
If you
That's a.
scroll down what I said,
It's really funny coming from him.
you've seen the first episode of Attack on Titan, so you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's hilarious. I'm surprised you didn't get more traction with that.
No, I don't have the blue check mark yet.
Ugh. I mean, liberal women, of course, are more good, like are better looking. What are you talking? Like, I don't think- oh, um,
Mr. Wumbo. Marjorie Taylor Greene calling people ugly is like George R. R. Martin calling out Battlestar Galactica for having a bad ending. Oh, wait a minute. We'll get to that conversation. We'll get to it. Give me a minute.
Wait, we need to we need to who made that comment?
Mr. Wumbo.
Oh my goodness. That is that is if only we all had. See, that the problem with it is that everyone needs to have known all of these references. Oh God. All right, guys. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you, Carmine, for being with me. We'll talk to you guys later.